Yeah, I would have been. I would have been canceled, lost my fucking job, probably lost my family. Nah, my family would have been okay with it.
Yeah. They
You
probably
would
have the
have
same
been
views.
banned from all like media industries.
Oh yeah, for sure. And definitely lost my job for sure.
We'll just leave it at that.
It's like Dan's like with a trigger finger waiting for the record, like for someone to say something. Recording started.
That's exactly what I'm just waiting. I'm like, what it is I read your guys' eyes like, oh, Chuck has an offensive comment coming out. I can read it, and then I hit record right when he goes. But I always just this one I just barely missed it. Dang it.
Yep.
And here's the funny thing. So on the episodes that we actually get flagged, that's what we actually recorded. What do we say off camera?
It's funny because still on those broadcasts, like on the sports, they'll still get through when they're like accidentally passed by like a pissed off player, and you hear like the F-bombs and like all of that going through. And it's like, didn't catch that one in time, did you?
Got him. I know. But anyways, welcome everybody back to Not a Strong Start, a movie podcast by filmmakers who talk movie, television, and drop F-bombs in between recording sessions and also during. We do it all the time as well. I'm your host, the High Sparrow, King Sangre.
Drogon, Jose Ramos.
And I'm Jon Snow. That's who I am.
Yeah. You know what? You guys would be Drogon and you would be Jon Snow. I can see, you got the hair going with Jon Snow. You being Drogon, just being the badass animal, the beast. The beast with two backs.
Everything down.
And you're the High Sparrow.
Exactly.
Fucking smug, pretentious dickhead. And I mean exactly. And that's a compliment, by the way.
Yeah, no, I'm taking it. Was that supposed to be an insult? No, I sit high on my throne on the ivory towers, looking down, lording over people, saying, "No, I don't approve. I don't approve."
You die. You die. You get naked and walk through the streets, please.
I would definitely sign up for that job. So for our audience people, if you guys haven't caught the theme, we're talking Game of Thrones, specifically House of the Dragon. That's what we're going to be talking about in this week's episode. It's going to be premiering on Sunday, but by the time you listen to this, it has already premiered. So we're going to go and get into our thoughts about what we think it's going to be, if we're excited about it, and even potential spinoffs. Current event time, Jose.
So one thing I was reading earlier is that you know how they've been filming the next two Mission Impossibles back to back.
Mm-hmm.
They already filmed one, and one of the new additions to the Mission Impossible series is Haley Atwell from Carter, Agent Carter,
Captain Carter.
Now Captain Carter. From there. So supposedly for the next two movies, they're kind of continuing with the trend of these like high octane stunts. And supposedly Atwell is kind of getting in on it and doing like some of her own stunts also. What are you guys' thoughts on like actors doing their own stunts and kind of taking that extra step for realism?
I think that's great.
With said hands.
That's great. No, I mean, that's cool. Like I know for me, like with the whole, concept of getting out of like the movie, the suspension of disbelief, and I see like the stunt person, they see, and then I see them or I see their face like all digital. Like I was watching the one with the girl that's with Ryan Reynolds and she's surfing and there's a shark. Shallow Hell?
No,
Shallow Hell needs a gal. Not Shallow.
Is it just Shallow?
The shallow.
Yeah, and there's some cool scenes that she's surfing, and you can totally tell they like digitally put her face onto like a real surfer, and I was like, nah. I mean, the movie's whatever anyway, but still, like it would have been cool to see like not see that actually. What an awful answer I just gave right now. What
you should have froze midway through.
If you're still listening to me, I'm sorry. But to answer this question, I think it's great. What do you think, Dan?
So in case if we froze on the last one, Chuck gave a very great answer. So now we blah blah blah, digital faces, the shallow with Shallow Hal, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's how do I feel about it? It's okay. So for actors, they're not really stunt doubles, so I don't ever really expect them to do it. It's a lot cooler if they did it.
Blake
Lively.
Blake Lively.
There you go.
There we go.
Hey, it took us 10 minutes of the show to figure that out. It was so necessary. So Blake Lively couldn't they couldn't give her some surfing lessons. Like that's the one where I'm like, come on, like you had to digitize her face on a body. You can't just have her go through like a month of surfing lessons and kind of learn how to do it. That's kind of how I feel. So like, I don't expect it. It's super cool and awesome that Tom Cruise does it. And it does add to the mystique of Mission Impossible. Like, so when I'm watching the stunts, the fact that I know that he did it does make it more like awesome to watch. It does add more of the higher stakes, but I don't really feel like it's necessary because we're not hiring stunt doubles. You know what I'm saying? Like we're not hiring people that can do a lot of that stuff. Otherwise, then if they're really good at that, then their acting is going to suffer. You know what I'm saying? Tom Cruise is kind of the exception. So, yeah, I don't know. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I like it when they do it. I feel I see the payoff with like Mission Impossible with the action sequences. You see the payoff when it is Tom Cruise. With John Wick, you see the payoff with the fight scenes and action sequences because they don't have to keep cutting out to bring in the the stunt double because he's doing it himself. So you see it, but kind of like you, I don't expect it, and I'm sure stuntmen don't like it because the more actors start doing it, less job for stuntmen. But I see the benefit, but I'm not like my actors that I enjoy have to do it.
Yeah, and you do hear about stunt doubles that say for actors that do their own stunts, they don't know how to necessarily always do it right. Meaning if they throw a punch, sometimes they literally punch the stunt doubles and they get upset about that. Like, look, I get that you're trying to do your own stunts, but fuck, man, you just cracked my jaw right now. Like, I didn't sign up for this. So it kind of goes both ways. You know what I mean? Like you're putting people in danger if you're not executing properly.
Yeah, and to add to that, there's the financial burden it does put on the production. I've read that Tom Cruise's insurance premiums that are up for his productions are through the roof because he's doing this. I mean, even just the last Mission Impossible, he broke his leg during a stunt, and they kept that scene in the movie, and he's like running and limping with a broken leg to keep it going. But not everyone could be Tom Cruise. Someone else might just crumble on the floor, cry, scream. Production's done.
I would probably do that. I'd be like, I stubbed my toe. Fuck.
Wow. 3 months of halt the production just because you have a bruised toe.
All right. Just to kind of add on to that. Sorry, Dan. Just like another current event, taking Tom Cruise. Top Gun actually just passed Infinity War for like the 6th highest grossing movie of all time. Isn't that crazy?
Dude, that's nuts. Without the Marvel marketing, like that's nuts, man.
That's fucking crazy, right?
If James Cameron was running it, they'll just re-release Infinity War to take the lead back.
Yeah, exactly.
But they bet on themselves though, because they could have released it on digital or whatever, like during the pandemic or not, but they had to have known, like, no, we got a pretty fucking awesome movie here. We're gonna wait.
It's the power of Miles Teller, man. You throw him in the movie and it makes $5 billion. Every movie.
By the way, Whiplash is one of my favorite movies of all time. By the way,
it's amazing. Great. No, it is.
Fucking love that movie, dude. Yeah, so good. I've seen it like 10 times.
It's really good that Miles Teller has gotten this resurgence because he started getting down. Like Hollywood started. They weren't really casting him as much because his attitude. Right? You heard a lot of stories about his attitude being really poor behind the scenes. So to see him kind of get this resurgence, that's awesome, man. Like just keep the ego in check, man. Just focus on the craft.
Yeah. Yeah, Jose. It's talking to you.
Yeah, we're talking about you, Jose. Keep the ego in check.
I can't. I tried. I asked my ego and it was like no, and I was like, okay.
Exactly.
Check your ego at the Zoom door, bro. At the Zoom link page.
You're like, no, man. My ego is the reason why this show's successful. Nas.
He's like, what the fuck did you guys talk about? I write your episode structures every week. What do you guys going to talk about? Be like, I don't know.
About how we glitch.
I believe I am the only one who hasn't at some point declared this their podcast.
Did I?
You have, yeah. I did it That's first. Although Marie on her podcast, she was talking about the recommendation about Jose Guinness. She's like, this guy Jose, he has his podcast with like his friends, and I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah, so I was on his podcast with him and his like two of his buddies or something, and I'm like,
Those two
right.
losers or whatever, but I think he interplays. He
I don't know what
interchanges
their
them
names
out.
are, but but it's his podcast, so
Jose and the Pips.
Jose and the Pips. All right, guys, we got to get a Game of Thrones, man. How did you guys feel about the OG show, the OG series? Go. We'll start off with you, Chuck. You look like the most enthused. Let's go. How'd you feel about Game of Thrones?
Overall, I loved it. Overall, I loved it. Obviously, there's issues with the last couple of seasons, mainly the last two. I know people think that like after like the fourth season, the fifth, they're like, but I still liked all of those seasons. It wasn't until like the last two where I was kind of like, ooh, this is kind of weird, but I was still into it. Like, I mean, I've watched it again since it's ended. It's not the same, but I was into it while I was watching it, like I wasn't like really tripping about anything, like I was into it, but it's, I said into it like 3 times. But I really was into it, and I loved it. I liked it. Like it was great. I think that, what's the guy's name? The writer?
George R. R.
George
Martin.
R. R. Martin.
Yeah. Did he fuck up? Is he like, I think Jose's mentioned, like, is he getting a mulligan with like his writing, his new books now? Did he kind of test out? Like,
yes.
Did he test out like, okay, I'm not really.
And now he's full on saying, I wasn't involved in 5 and 6, and I definitely wasn't involved in 7 or 8. I'm like, that's pretty damn convenient, considering that you were even though they clearly told us before the show even ended, he fed them the ending and they used it. Now all of a sudden he's not involved in it. Like, come on, man. Come on.
So I feel like he's like, I think this will work here, and then no one liked the end, so he's like, all right, fuck that. I'll do something else for my books.
You know what he did? He rage quit.
He rage quit, right?
It never happened because I didn't see it. So it never happened.
Oh, like I didn't know he said that. Yeah, I thought that he was involved the whole time. Like, I mean, I know where his books end, but I still thought, like you said, like he was kind of feeding them, like, this is where I was going, this is where I went, this is what I got to, and you guys can fill in the rest. But yeah, now it kind of sounds like I think Jose may have mentioned that, like he got a mulligan, he got a free pass, or it's like, I get to do over on my books now because
Yeah, the show ended up just being a large like focus group for his book.
yeah, exactly.
Hey, he was the High Sparrow. Nope. No. That's all it was. And how do you feel, Jose?
I mean, I came in when it was already in season 3 and just kind of binged through like the first, and overall, like Chuck, I really enjoyed the show. It has such good characters, high stakes. I love the tension overall that the show had, because you felt no one was safe. And you don't get that with too many shows. Most shows, you're like, okay, these 3 people, they're untouchable, and they usually end up being untouchable. So that was what I loved about the show. Yeah, the last season, well, kind of like the last season and a half, it could have been better. I felt it seemed to rush. A lot of that air of danger for the major characters kind of went away, where all of a sudden you felt the security blanket over certain characters. So that kind of took a little bit away from it. I mean, was it the worst season of a show I've ever seen? No, there was some redeeming factors in it, but it wasn't the best way to close out, but it didn't ruin the show as an entirety for me.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Exactly. Another good answer.
What he just said.
Ditto. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Don. I already went.
Okay. Yeah, I feel the same way you do, Jose. I got into it around the second season when it was on. I watched it, and as soon as they cut off Ned Stark's head, I was like, oh shit, the show is good. That's when I knew, man, you're willing to kill off anybody. And that's when they set the mark. So when I was by like the 4th or 5th season, I was on board. I was so on board with it, where I thought it had potential to be one of the greatest drama series we've ever seen. I was so on board with it. Every move they were making was amazing. The characters, the acting, like Cersei Lannister was so damn good in this one. Tyrion Lannister, Tywin Lannister, like the Lannister family was so good in the show. Even Daenerys was starting to grow and she was flourishing. I was so into it. I think it was by season 5, I started to notice a couple of issues where I was like, okay, I was still high on it, but I noticed that wasn't necessarily great. And then season 6 and then 7, and then once it started coming, that's when I started realizing, damn, it's bleeding. It's sort of like Predator. There's blood. Like that's the way I felt. Before they couldn't do no wrong. Now I'm starting to see a lot of the flaws, but I was like, okay, as long as they stick the landing, and then they gave us Brand the Broken, and I was like, fuck you, man. Well, like that was like one of the worst people you could have chosen, period. And then the very end, how they killed Daenerys. I'm not even mad that Jon Snow did it. It's just that relationship felt so forced, so rushed. And like I just never believed it. I never believed it. The writers were just telling us they're in love. I didn't see it. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just too rushed, man. Like, and then they were always setting it up where even with Jon Snow being, half Targaryen, half Stark, you felt like it was destined for them to have a kid. They never did, and just so many things that they set up just fell flat. It just fell
Ice
flat.
and fire, like it was just like nothing came of it. And you know what I didn't like about it the most actually was I felt like the characters in the show knew the show was ending.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like they knew it was like everybody, it felt like it was ending, where like it just didn't like end. You're like, oh, I don't know I'm gonna die. Oh, I don't know I'm ending. Like, we're still going. There's still life. So they knew the show was ending. And I'm like, I could feel that. And I'm like, I don't like it, but I'll ignore it, because it did, like you said, it did feel rushed. And there just wasn't a lot of payoff, dude. Like Cersei, like you wanted her like a Ramsay Bolton death for her.
Yes.
And she didn't get it. Like she got away with everything, but not in a way that's like she got away. They let her, like, it was just, I hated that. That was one of the biggest things I hated, because she was such a great evil character. I fucking hated her, but in all the ways I was supposed to. And you couldn't wait for her to just finally get it, and she didn't.
And the show was like so big. So when the show is that big and has such a following, to like not nail your ending like that, it has a huge like ripple effect. Like, I remember we had our THM YouTube page, and we started doing reaction videos to the episodes. And those were our biggest episodes. There was, didn't we get to like 100,000 views or something?
Over, man. We had some hit over 200,000. Like we were crossing 6 figures easily on views. Yeah.
And that, we weren't doing anything but watching the video, but that's how big the following was for this show. So when it failed on its landing, on its ending, it had ripple effects across a ton of people.
Yeah. And I wonder if there's something behind that, right? Because they kept talking throughout the show. They knew what the ending was. But based on fan reaction, there's characters you might have killed off or written off, but the fans love them. So you're now forced to extend them, which is now altering the spider web that you had getting there. So that's why sometimes it feels rushed, like Game of Thrones did, because they didn't properly set up certain things sooner. Because again, they wanted some of these actors, these popular characters to keep going. I'm sure that had to have had something to do with it, because how do you go from amazing, excellent, like top A+ writing to just so questionable? Like they turned in like season 3 and 4 of Lost. That's the way it felt to me, where I was like, what are you doing? Like, who's writing this? It felt so different. You know what I'm saying?
I know. One of the rumors out there, and again, just a rumor, this could be completely false out there, was that
is this a Nas made up fact?
No, this is internet rumor that was out for a while after that final season, was supposedly the two showrunners kind of rushed through it because they were ready to move on from the project
to Star Wars,
to do other stuff, and there was like Star Wars at the time, which they ended up that ended up falling apart. But supposedly a rumor is their mind was already on the next project, and they were kind of just rushing through it.
Yeah.
Whether that's accurate or not, don't know. But that was one of the biggest rumors, because people are just trying to find a reason, like, how can this fall so hard after being so great?
Okay. So I have a question for you guys. A dire wolf or a dragon?
I think I'm gonna have to go dragon, and for some very important reasons. Number one, all the money you could save on airfare. You know,
That's the most
no
important.
more. Yes, no more flight delays. No more having to go through security. Just kind of, it's like it's your own slower private jet that has fire. So I would go with that. Great home protection. You know, if you put out a sign like "Caution, Guard Dragon," people are probably
Caution,
not gonna fuck with
dragon.
you. Yeah. And then three, living here in New England right now, snow removal would be so easy. You could just melt all the snow away. So for those three reasons, and only those three reasons, I would choose the dragon.
Only. There's no other reasons for it. All right. How about you, Chuck?
I was gonna pick direwolf anyway, but even if I wanted to pick dragon, I don't have those good enough answers better than that. So I'm more of a local guy. You know, I don't really travel, so I don't really go anywhere. So I'm gonna take the direwolf, take some walks. Not bad home protection as well. Beware, direwolf.
It also eats a lot less. You know, the dragon's gonna cost you a lot of money to feed that mother.
Yeah,
trucker.
with the direwolf, we might be able to eat together. Maybe like, hey, can
the
you
same carcass.
go pick something up, and then it's gonna go and bring something, and I just eat it up.
Where's Minnie? He was supposed to come over. He just dragged his dead body. It's like, all right, lunchtime.
So maybe for that reason and that reason alone, direwolf.
I want to naturally say a dragon, but like if you're thinking realistic, like it's really hard to keep that thing. You'd have mass media behind you, you know, just to feed it. Like what are you feeding it? If you're having to buy a bunch of cows or whatever, just people. At that point, I would just lord over everything. If I had a pet dragon, which would be awesome, I would literally just live on an island and just write it and just scoop and just eat a bunch of people and come back. I will be feared. It's my first step towards world domination. So you know what? Fuck it. I convinced myself. I'm going with the dragon. All right. So the new series, House of the Dragon. So Jose, you have what the premise is for us?
Yeah. So basically, this is going to cover. It takes place 200 years before Game of Thrones. It's going to focus on the House Targaryen. I guess the general concept of it. Now, I haven't read any of the books. I'm not a book reader. I don't know if you guys are. So I go strictly off like the series itself. So this is supposedly going to cover the Targaryen Civil War, which they call the Dance of the Dragons. So basically, the Targaryens, they're at the peak of their rule. They've ruled in peace, I think, for like 60, 70 years with no issue. But now the question of secession is coming up, which is leading to like internal turmoil. And that's the premise that's kind of driving the series that we're going to watch.
Dragon versus dragon. Got it.
Yeah, I've heard that from a couple of like, you know, reviewers who've got to see the show already, that it reminds them of Succession, the HBO show.
Ooh, okay.
So
that's interesting.
They're like very much like Succession. I'm like,
all right.
Okay.
What's cool about it is like, so this one is actually R.R. Martin and someone called Ryan Condell are the creators.
Someone called? You mean someone named?
Yeah, someone named.
Yes. Okay, so that's what I wanted to ask you. That's what I wanted to ask you. Dude. Huh? Yeah, I know.
Because they were this dragons fucking enslaving people already. Someone called this.
Yeah, the man that's called lunch. Like, damn.
Yeah. Food number 567.
Yes. No, that's what I wanted to ask you guys, because Ryan Condell was the producer for Rampage, Colony, and Hercules with the Rock. He's now heading. So how's your confidence level after hearing that, Chuck?
I mean, he's done a lot more than I have, but
yeah, true. But that's why we weren't even given a meeting to pitch our thoughts.
It's hard, you know, because, you know, us doing things that we've done or whatever, and maybe we've done a few things that weren't great, but we're always like, dude, I'm getting better. I'm learning. I'm getting better, you know? And, you know, like I want to have confidence in
Jon Snow's not having it.
And what he's gonna do, You know, so he might be ready, you know, to take the next step. You know, he's like, oh, maybe I had to do this shit to get to where I wanted to be. You know, I don't know. You know, off his track record, I'm a little skeptical, but we'll see.
Okay. How about you, Jose?
Originally, yes, I was skeptical, but I actually read up on him, which gave me a little bit more confidence in it. Besides the project that he's worked on, him and Martin actually met a long time ago at like a book convention site where he was trying to get a signature. And through a series of events, they actually ended up being friends. Huh?
Sorry.
Friends first. No.
With benefits.
With benefits.
They ended up being friends, and he actually was so in tune and knowledgeable over Martin's like work and all of the books and other like sci-fi writers that Martin took a liking to him, and he's the one who actually got him this job and brought him in. So if we remember Game of Thrones, when Martin was more involved and it was following his source material more closely, is when we got the best of the series. So if we're having someone coming in who George trusts, knows the material to a T and the characters to a T, that gives me a little more confidence over him, being one of the co-creators of this series.
Yeah, it also seems like this guy's willing to listen to him. Right. And that was the problem with the original trilogy. With the original series, was they did listen to him. And as the show evolved, maybe they stopped. You know what I mean? Maybe they stopped taking his notes and we're like, you know what? We got this now. Your book material ran out. We know what we want to do with this. Here's where we're going. He could have just found a guy that's like, yo, I'm just going to keep taking your notes and I'm going to keep listening. And maybe that's, kind of help push it too.
Originally, when they were looking to do spinoffs, George went to him and was like trying to get ideas. So what do you think would be a good spinoff? And he had pitched another one of the books. And at that time, HBO was like, no, we don't want to do this one. So then when HBO decided they wanted to do the House of Dragons, he went straight to him. He was like, I want you on board. So he has confidence in him. But what were you going to say, Chuck?
This is all new material, right? So what they're writing, there's no books, there's nothing, right? Like they're just
no, there is.
Are you sure?
There is, yeah.
Because I feel like I heard that it's all original stuff. They're basing it off something, but there's nothing in the book. I could be wrong. That's why I'm asking.
No, there is. They're basing it off of source material. I'm trying to remember what the exact name of it. It's a Fire and Blood. So Martin had written kind of the history of what occurred during the dynasty of the House Targaryen and their fall and all of that stuff, and that's what they're going to follow.
Cool,
gotcha.
Cool. I'm excited that Matt Smith, the guy that plays Doctor Who's in this, he plays a pretty good villain, man. He's a good actor from what I've seen from him. I'm really hoping he's a villain in this. I really want to see
about Morbius.
I turned it off. It never existed. I rage quit. Morbius, literally. So, hey.
I would just like to say, just on a side note, I've seen Dan rage quit in real life.
I've seen Chuck rage quit multiple times, and you guys have seen it too on this very show. In our live stream.
I've seen Dan.
I did do it in real
rage
life.
Quit in real life.
I did. I was like, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
It was the most confusing, entertaining, sad, loving experience I've had with him, where it was just like, what happened?
Yeah, we were there. There's always those moments, where you're doing something and, you get kind of like a little out of body experience, where you kind of something like you look down and I'm thinking, the fuck am I doing? And I was like, you know what? I'm out. I'd rather just go home, pop in Morbius, and I could have a more entertaining time than right now. I'm out.
Yeah, as a friend, I went after you though. I was like, wait a minute.
And I came back for you.
Yeah,
only because of you. I was like, all right, I came back.
I probably would have rage quit too if you left. I would have been like, fuck this. I'm out of here too.
You were saying on their phone, you're like, dude, because if you leave, then I'm gonna leave. And I'm like, all right, I'm coming back. All right. You got me. Okay,
sorry,
so What specifically do you guys want to see from the new show?
Blood, nudity, murder, blood.
And then
fire, dragons, nudity.
there you go.
What about you, Jose?
Well, there goes the ads. You said murder. The main thing is because I want to see the contrast between Game of Thrones and this one on how it is with the Targaryens running everything and them being at their power, and see how the world looks with them in charge compared to Game of Thrones when it was the Lannisters running everything.
Yeah. For me, there's just two big things. I want to see uniqueness. I want to see how this is different than Game of Thrones. Don't give us the exact same thing, but with different characters, which means, does it mean it's more villains, more mythology? Show us something new that we didn't see in Game of Thrones. The other one is strong writing and consistency. Be consistent throughout the show, please. Don't set us up with a couple of great seasons and then just for it to falter and at the end again. Let us walk away having kind of redeemed a little bit of Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones, the original series, as great as it was, it left such a sour taste in everybody's mouth, which is why it completely feels like the Jon Snow spinoff. I don't know if that would have happened if the show ended so poorly. It really feels like here's a mulligan. It feels like they're really trying to backtrack and sort of save face for that show, because they had so many spinoffs planned for this franchise, and they even had one that had Naomi Watts in it. They even filmed the pilot. They filmed the pilot, and they still canned it with Naomi Watts in that movie or that show. So I don't know, man. It feels like they have some damage control to do, and this show and the Jon Snow one are absolutely crucial for that.
Yeah. Okay. I heard that. Like I said, I looked at a few reviewers that have seen it, and when they got their their access to it, that it says at least get through the first six episodes, and the two people have already said that sixth episode, it's like boom, it's good, but once it hits that sixth episode, it takes off. Good. So it might be a slow burn, which is fine.
That's how Game of Thrones was. Remember, it wasn't until the ninth episode, once you saw the beheading, where it was like, oh shit. So if these people did on the sixth episode, they're getting to it faster. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
What I do want them to keep from Game of Thrones is the gray area characters. That's one thing I really liked about Game of Thrones. There was very few characters that were just pure good or pure evil. Like Jon Snow was probably the only pure good character that there was. And then Cersei was one of your pure evil.
Yeah, Robb Stark was too. Robb Stark, Ned Stark. I feel like the Starks were pretty,
Starks.
I agree. But it's like,
and also, no, I'm kidding. Jose's like, fuck, they were all good and they were all bad. Never mind.
Yeah,
never mind.
Well, I mean, Jon Snow was the only pure good character that actually lasted. Every other one, anyone that was good was just pretty much killed off.
But I like that. That's what set the bar with Game of Thrones. That's why I loved it, because that's what Ned Stark proved. And that's why they called him a fool. If you're going to be super good and have these good intentions, Superman wouldn't exist in Game of Thrones. You know what I'm saying? You can't have that hero, because you needed to be gray. You needed to play chess and not checkers. That's what made Game of Thrones so fascinating to me.
And that's what I want them to keep a lot of those gray area characters, where characters where it's like you're not going to agree with some of their actions and you're going to like some of their actions, where you as a viewer, you're conflicted, should I be cheering for this person? Should I not? There's some good, there's some bad. That's what I want from this one, because that's what I was getting from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, like Jaime Lannister, he was so hateable, right? And then season 3 or 4 or something, you're like, I kind of like this guy. You realize his story, and he's still fucked in the head, and he fucked up at the end too.
It was a redemption story, man. He tried, he did it. Yeah, I love it.
But that was one of my favorite characters, though, because of what Jose's saying.
Yeah,
just all right, whatever. I'll shut up.
Is there any other Game of Thrones spinoffs you'd like to see from the original series? Obviously, that we're talking about, because we haven't seen the new one yet. So, any spinoffs?
Obviously, Jon Snow. I want to see Jon Snow. I want to see him in his hair and his eyes, and see him bang a bunch of wildlings. It could just be that. That's fine.
I wish he would, man.
Yeah, man, he deserves it, dude.
He does. The only thing I don't want to see with Jon, I really want to see Jon Snow evolve. I know he's wearing that Captain America type, I'm a good guy, I got these good morals. That could become so bland in time. And I know some people didn't love Jon Snow just for that reason. I love Jon Snow too, but when you have the Tyrion Lannisters, their characters are more fascinating than Jon Snow. You like that depth, like what Jose was talking about, where you dip between good and evil. I'm not saying Jon Snow needs to show that because it would go too against his character, but you gotta show us something different than what we saw in just Game of Thrones. He's got to evolve.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I do want to see that Jon Snow, he was one of my favorite characters in the show, but not a spin-off that they have and not a spin-off that will happen. But it would be great if they went like the Marvel route and just did like a what if, and just did a what if where like, everything goes kind of like it did in season 8. Then it destroys King's Landing. She's now the ruler. But now instead of like naming Brand the Broken as the top guy, everyone, whoever's left, all injured, kind of goes into hiding, picks up the pieces. Jon Snow leads a rebellion against the ruthless like regime of Dany, with like Arya going lone wolf and having surgical strikes left and right, and then just kind of that becomes the storyline. Give me that what if, and just kind of repair some of that ending.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
For me, I went Tywin Lannister, a young Tywin Lannister. So, which is the dad of Tyrion and Cersei. I want to see a villain as a lead, sort of like a young, like what we're seeing with the boys in Homelander. Show me something like that with Tywin. I want to see the ruthlessness, how he started, because in the show they talk about how he was this mastermind at strategy. I want to see that. I want to see the cutthroat. I want to see the evil. I want to see him taking down the Starks from even at a young age. Like, show me that, man. Let's get a villain show.
That'd be a good one. That'd be a good one.
All right. So, guys, what's on the queue? What do you want to recommend to our audience?
Game of Thrones.
House of the Dragon.
I'm gonna. Okay. Is there reasons why you guys want to recommend that other than it being so obvious? But go ahead.
Because it's obvious.
Yeah.
Because we talked
Excellent
about
answer.
it.
Yeah.
If you got anything out of these last 37 minutes, watch it because it's all there. You already explained it. Got it.
Yeah. Well, I say Game of Thrones, one for anyone who hasn't watched it, those few people that haven't watched the series, if they want to get into the House of Dragon, but also people who did watch the series, especially if it's going to follow the writings of Martin. There's probably going to be a lot of links and references that were touched on in Game of Thrones. So it might add to your experience having those fresh in your mind.
Okay. I went with something different because I figured you guys were going to say that. I went with Lord of the Rings specifically because Sean Bean's in it. So Ned Stark, plopped him, Lord of the Rings, recommend it. It's still within the same type of category as Game of Thrones is. The trilogy held up. How did you guys feel when you first saw Lord of the Rings and then when Game of Thrones came out? Did that alter how you felt about Lord of the Rings?
No.
I enjoyed Lord of the Rings, but I was never a Lord of the Rings fanatic.
Yeah. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. Like it's the best trilogy.
And you dress up
I dressed up as an elf, a girl, a female elf. I dressed up as Liv Tyler's character, whatever her name is. And then I looked in the mirror and I did the scene from Silence of the Lambs with Wild Bill.
No.
And I asked myself
Buffalo
questions. Oh, Buffalo Bill, whatever. Kill Bill.
Kill Bill.
And
would you? And would you?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we know.
I was like, would you? I would.
So when I talked about my out of body experience, you'd be looking at yourself like, oh, I totally would.
Yeah.
I felt I liked Lord of the Rings. I did, but when Game of Thrones came out, I liked it even more. So that's why Lord of the Rings went down just a little bit because it was just too clean. You know what I mean? It's too clean. I like villains. I love villains. I love great characters, the anti-heroes, the anti-villains. I love all that. So yeah, Game of Thrones kind of took it over for me, which made Lord of the Rings drop a little bit.
you know what's funny that's your choice for that is because Game of Thrones, the House of Dragon comes out tomorrow, but then 2 weeks later, the Lord of the Rings series comes out on Amazon. So they're actually going to be kind of competing with each other.
Are you guys hyped for that at all? At all?
I haven't even watched the trailer.
Every time I see an ad for the trailer, I'm like, ugh.
Yes.
Swipe.
Dude, seriously, which tells you
swipe left
your love of Game of Thrones, because we're doing an entire episode on Game of Thrones and we haven't even watched the trailer that's been out for over a month on Lord of the Rings. There's our answer.
It doesn't have Orlando Bloom in it, dude. So I'm like, meh. not watching it.
But if it had Josh Hart in it, you'd be in it? You'd be into it?
Of course I would, yeah.
Of
course I would. Of course I would. But you know what though? I wasn't that pumped to watch House of Targaryens either until like a few days ago.
I agree. The more I started doing research, the more I got interested in it, because I had such a sour taste from how they ended it. The Jon Snow show, I'm more interested in because I know they can directly alter how that show ended. You know what I mean? Game of Thrones. That's why I'm more interested in that one. But like I said, man, they really got to let him grow. Just don't have him stuck at the wall. Don't do the same thing he's been talking about honor. Like I heard 8 seasons of this.
Maybe he wakes up and it's like a fucking dream.
It was all a dream.
And then he wakes up and he's at the wall. And then he's like, oh shit. And then they start over again from like season 2 or something.
Then they play the Saved by the Bell theme song, and it's like a full-on comedy. And it's like, what the fuck am I watching? This is Game of Thrones? I'd watch it though. I like it. Anyways, on that note, guys, thanks for watching us. Another episode. You please like, subscribe, comment, share on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Not a Strong Start. I am your host, the High Sparrow. You can follow me at King_Sangre.
I'm Drogon. You can find me at This Is Mi Nombre.
Sorry, I thought you were going to say you can find me flying around or something like that. I don't know.
Eating people.
Fire, eating people. I'm Jon Snow. You can find me at Shadow12.
And now you got to give us the Jon Snow hair flick.
Or it's a sad dies.